And all right, welcome. This is our 7th call for the EFT during the COVID pandemic, giving you calm amidst uncertainty. And next week is going to be the final call in this series, and then Chris and I are going to kind of reconvene, and we'll see if we do another thing. But I'm thinking if we do, it's not going to be weekly, so we don't have that hashed out yet what that will look like, so you can stay tuned. But next week is the official last one in this series that we've been doing. So thanks for the repeaters who keep coming. I love it that we have you guys keep coming back each week, so that's been fantastic. And yeah, while Mira and I were waiting for everyone else to join, we were just kind of talking about like how things are going, and I was saying how, it's kind of like this ebb and flow and this up and down, where it's like, okay, you get into like kind of your groove of the new normal, and then bam, something hits you and it's like, oh my gosh, the grief comes up. Like, is this really like our new reality? Is this really what we have to like live with and deal with and learn to navigate? And so I was explaining to her that it does remind me of the other times that I've like truly been grieving, like grieving the death of my first husband. And, you get into like the new normal of things, and the days get a little bit easier, and then something happens, and it could be some little tiny thing. You never know what it's going to be. And all of a sudden you're back in your grief. And so I'm definitely having that experience, and a lot of the people that I'm talking to are having very, very similar experiences. And actually, I think even so, I've been binging Brene Brown's new blog. So if you are a fan of hers and are not familiar with her new blog, it's called Unlocking Us, and I highly, highly recommend it. It just happened to be that she was launching a new blog already at the beginning of March, when all of this pandemic stuff started to really take effect. And so I've really been enjoying her new blog. But yeah, I think she kind of in one of them was talking about that actually. Oh yeah, so one of the, I'm trying to remember, like, which one was that? So the guy who, I'm gonna forget his name right now because I'm horrible with names, but the guy who wrote the book with Kubler-Ross on grief, he has a new book out. And so they were literally talking about grief in the pandemic a little bit. That wasn't, the call was about his book and other aspects of it, but they were talking about that. And so that might have been where I heard talking about the ebb and flow. I can't remember. I can't take credit for that. Someone else was talking about it in that way. And I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what's going on. It's just like all the other times I've been in grief. So yeah, so that's what's been going on in my neck of the woods. And I don't know, let me know in the chat if you're feeling some of that too. I know everybody's having their own unique experience, but there is still a collective experience. And if you follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, I share my art sometimes, and I'm working on a page in my art journal where I like literally, like, that's what I'm talking about, is the collective grief that we're experiencing right now. So because that's definitely been something that's been on my mind and in the back of my mind, because it's a reality for me and a lot of people that I know. So, and Megan says that she just got Brene's new book. Yeah, I don't have her new book. There's other books of hers that I don't have, but I absolutely love her. As you can see, I have a lot of books, and I also have a lot of books like in a pile that still need to be read. So I've kind of stopped buying. I've made myself stop buying books just because I have so many that I haven't read that are waiting to be read. But I am getting more into podcasts, and I've always loved audiobooks. But back when they were on a CD, I used to get the CDs from the library. Now I get the digital audiobooks from the library. But all right, well, let's go ahead and start with some group tapping. And anytime, if anybody has any questions or anything, go ahead and throw that into chat. I'm not going to give the little spiel about that, because everybody who's on tonight has been on before, so we don't have to really cover all of that, like how the thing works with Zoom and all of that. So I think everybody here knows that. So But just because we are recording this, Chris and I are both, and he will be joining us again late, and it sounds like that's going to be like just through the end of the month. So he'll be late again, most likely next week as well. But he will be doing the volunteer tonight. So if anybody here is interested in volunteering, we can start kind of thinking about that. But we're both practicing and trained in clinical EFT, emotional freedom techniques, as it was originally created by Gary Craig, the founder, and then we are accredited through EFT International, which used to be AMET. They've changed their name a year ago. And so that's actually how we met each other. We met in our training. I was auditing because I like to go back and redo the training every couple of years. And we happened to sit next to each other, and we've been doing swaps together now for quite a few years. And he just got his certification, so has finished that whole process. And we just absolutely love it and can't wait to share it with as many people as possible. So thanks for showing up and letting us share this wonderful tool with you. So let's just, since we were talking about, I was talking about with Mira, the collective grief. Does anybody have anything else to say about that? Are other people struggling with that? Because I was thinking that could be the topic of our group tap. We could just have some wording around what's coming up for people with the pandemic and any of the grief or the things that kind of fall into that category if you have concerns. So feel free to put that in the chat if anybody has anything. And I'm going to go ahead and just start tapping. So if you want to start tapping on the side of your hand, or you can rub on any of the tender spots that are here through all the different lymph glands that we have, and repeat after me. Even though I'm feeling all this grief, there's so much uncertainty in the world, and there's so much pain and struggle and even death happening right now. It's all out of my control. I deeply and completely accept myself and what I'm feeling. Even though I'm feeling all this grief, and for me, I can feel it in my chest. So if you're feeling something somewhere else, you can name a different body part, or if you're not feeling it in a body part, that's okay. I'm feeling all this grief in my chest. I feel this tightness. I feel like I'm carrying it around with me all the time, even when I don't realize it. But I'm willing to try and accept myself and how I'm feeling, and accept my body. Even though I'm feeling all this grief, there's so much pain and illness and even death happening all around the world. Every time you go on social media or turn on the TV, you see it everywhere. And I feel so helpless. Like it's all out of my control. And yet, I'm willing to deeply and completely accept myself and how I'm feeling. All right, so top of the head, all this grief. I'm going to go ahead and do the points on the face, but you can skip down to the collarbone if you don't want to touch your face. All this grief. Outer eye. This grief I carry in my chest. Under the eye. This collective grief that I'm picking up. Under the nose. My own personal grief that I'm feeling. Chin point. Sometimes I can't tell whose grief it is. Whether it's my grief or someone else's. All this grief and pain and suffering in the world. And then the wrist point, all this grief. So go ahead and take a moment and just check back in. Notice if anything is coming up, anything different. And making a comment about the conversation around Brene Brown and her work. So was it the gifts of imperfection that you were mentioning, or was it's one that you said is tied into that one? She has so many books. But yeah, the gifts of imperfection, that's one I have read and do own, and I really love that one. And I've even actually thought about leading that in like a book club / EFT, like tapping around some of the stuff that comes up going through the process of that book chapter by chapter. I think I've kind of had that in the back of my mind for years, because yeah, that's a really good book. So anybody have any thoughts or anything different that came up during that first round? Braving the Wilderness, yeah, and that's the one I have not read that one yet. Anyone have anything particular about that first round of tapping? Because we can change up the wording and add in some more of your own thoughts or ideas if anybody wants to share that. So does any of this resonate? I know Mira and I were talking about it, so it was resonating with her, but what about others? This idea of picking up on just some of the collective grief from all the uncertainty and the tragedy and things that are happening out in the world. Is that even resonating? Yeah, okay. Yeah, just want to make sure, because we can always do a group tap on something else. It's definitely something that keeps coming up for me over this whole 2 months plus, like back and forth. And Anne says, yeah, sadness for around how people are going to mark this point in history. Yeah, no, I definitely hear you on that one. Jody says, feeling powerless in 10,000 ways and stuck and irritable. Yeah. My husband gets the brunt of the irritability when it comes up, like, because usually that starts to bubble up before I realize exactly, like, oh yes, this is the grief coming up again, before I like totally am tracking like with what's happening. It's like, okay, sorry, I'm getting snippy. I'm just feeling the grief. So all right, so let's do another round. We'll add some of this in. Even though I feel all this sadness, I wonder how people are going to mark this point in history. Like, we are literally living history right now. I feel totally powerless. I'm so stuck. Really, there's no control over so many things right now. I don't know what I'm going to do. So maybe I'm going to sleep too much or eat too much or not sleep enough. Shows its head in so many different ways. And yet I'm willing to try and accept myself and how I'm feeling. Even though I'm feeling all this grief. And sometimes I don't even realize I'm feeling it until I start to get irritable and snappy. This feels totally out of my control. And so sometimes maybe I get over controlling. And sometimes I feel like I just want to give up. But I'm willing to try and accept myself anyway. And have some compassion on that part of me that's feeling all this grief and doesn't know what to do with it. All right, I can't remember if that was 3 or not. We're going to do one more just in case. Even though I'm feeling all this grief, I feel stuck and irritable. And I just have so much sadness for this point in history. How are people going to remember this? What's it going to be like by the time we get through it? I'm willing to try and accept myself right here, right now. All right, top of the head. All this grief. All this sadness. How are we going to mark this point in history? How will it be remembered? How will we make it through? Chin point. I feel so powerless. Makes me feel stuck and irritable. Makes me want to eat too much, sleep too much. All this grief. I feel like I don't have any control. All right. So checking back in, if you want to take a deep breath or a sip of water. I'm just realizing this is how out of it today. I don't even have my glass of water to remind you guys to stay hydrated and drink water. I left it in the kitchen. All right. So how are people feeling after that second round? Any other thoughts come up, or different emotions even? So people talking about grief and sadness and feeling powerless and cravings, loss. Yeah, really feeling the loss. Yeah, I hear you on that. Jody says I need a vacation. Yeah. All right, Christopher is here. Letting Chris in. Welcome, welcome. Still feeling some butterflies in your stomach and anxious. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the cooking and I'm assuming probably the eating didn't satisfy today. Yep, I can identify with that and agree with that. All right, let's do one more round. And then be thinking about if you are interested in volunteering, because we're going to take a volunteer. Chris is here. We'll turn off the video. And yeah, so let's do another group tap about all this grief coming up. Even though I'm still feeling some grief and loss, I still have butterflies in my stomach, still feeling anxiety and grief in my chest. I'm willing to accept myself and how I'm feeling and how my body is feeling. Even though I still have this remaining grief, I still can feel all this loss in my body. Normal things just don't satisfy. I feel like I need an escape, I need a vacation. So tired of all this uncertainty and loss and pain in the world. But I'm willing to try and accept myself right where I am right now. Even though I'm feeling all of this grief, there's so much pain and loss. I'm just reading some of the chat remarks. I really would like to get away. I like to go on a vacation. I like to just get away from all of this stress and uncertainty. But I'm willing to try and accept myself right where I am right now. All right, top of the head. This remaining grief. Eyebrow points. All this grief and loss. Outer eye. Still feeling this grief. The loss of vacations. the loss of just normalcy, whether that's getting together with friends or getting away and getting some alone time, feeling all this grief, this remaining grief. All right. So go ahead and check in, and if you want to share anything in chat that was coming up for you, or if there's been any movement or anything new or different, and if anyone would like to ask any questions or volunteer, we're going to take a volunteer here soon. And give me a second, I need to make Chris a co-host. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. I made it.
Yeah, good to see you. And I like that royal blue. That shirt.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions or anything? Oh, that's nice, Anne. Yeah. Yeah, I have empathy in spades. I sometimes say it's one of my superpowers, and it also can be one of the reasons that you are struggling in times like these, right? Because there's so much loss and pain, and in so many different forms, right? It's not the same for everybody. Anne mentioned, always having the husband around, and I am also married, and I'm an introvert. And I'm spending a lot of time either with my elderly mom, who I adore, and we have a great relationship, or I'm home, and my husband's home all the time. And we actually both work from home normally, but this is like even different because we're home so much more. And so I have not been getting the alone time that I need. So I've been doing things the last 2 weeks to really try and get that back in different ways. And it's not in any way, shape, or form necessarily my husband's fault. It's just like me all of a sudden realizing like, oh yeah, I haven't done any art. I haven't been journaling. I haven't, like, there's things that I normally would do that I haven't been doing. But some people are really lonely because they live totally by themselves. So we're all in different places, but yet there's still a lot of loss and pain that's happening all around. So yeah, so thanks everybody for sharing. Would anyone like to volunteer, or does anybody have any questions? Because yeah, we're at that time. It's about halfway through, so we can go ahead and stop the recording if there are no questions or anything. And just to mention that both Chris and I take free consults, so we both do free 20-minute consults. He's offering one free session. I'm offering a discount on my EFT package, and then we'll of course be doing one more call next week, and then reconvening to talk about what that might look like going forward. So hopefully we'll have more information that we'll be able to share with you next week on that. Yeah, so if there's not any questions, do you have anything else you want to announce or share, Chris, before I turn off the recording?
No, you can go and turn it off.
Yeah, okay, all